Hello, everybody. This is the Food Web Podcast coming at you every Wednesday live. We're broadcasting on Instagram and LinkedIn, and you can catch the show on Spotify and YouTube. Make sure to like and subscribe and do all the things that make our ratings go up and make us get noticed. Why? Because we're focused on food security and improving the food ecosystem. This isn't going to happen on its own. We need your help. So if you are a foodie, we want to hear from you. Comment, send us an email. Justin's Justin at foodweb.network. I'm Keegan at foodweb.network. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your food stories. If you'd like to appear on as a guest on our show or show up on one of our live broadcasts on Wednesdays on LinkedIn or Instagram, give us a shout and we'll bring you up. And even just ask a question, pop in. We're talking all things food. Doesn't matter what it is. If you have a food story, like we're going to be talking about today, that's what today's podcast is all about. It's Justin and mine. It's our food story. The title of this show is Food Saved My Life. So that's what we're going to be chatting about. I'm going to set us off on a particular path here, Justin. What has us so interested in food, basically? Like food, you've been more involved as a career in food, whereas for me, food saved my life and I went off in a different career trajectory, and maybe we'll get into, not maybe, we will get into that. But let's start with you. What role has food played in your life? Like the overarching theme of this podcast right now is we need to establish a through line with the people that we're talking to. What are we even doing here? Are we a couple of greedy folks having a food business, or basically no? I'll answer that question up front. This is not a lucrative business for us to start, at least right now it isn't. Like, it's going to be a slog. It's a real long haul, like many successful startups. Like you start pretty slow, but what roots us here, what grounds us? And feel free to weave in as much food web ethos into the picture as you feel is necessary. So take it away there, my friend.
Yeah, food saved my life. And that's something Keegan and I really share, is that food really stepped in as a profound tool for healing by changing our relationship with food. Brief little backstory. Backstory. Would you believe that I used to be a picky eater to then become a chef and somebody who loves food so much? Growing up, my food habits were not healthy. I grew up with a single mom who was working, busy, and it was very difficult. I was very difficult to deal with. And for the first number of years of my life, I wouldn't eat anything with flavor, literally. Like, it was plain pasta with butter, was dry chicken fingers with no dipping sauce. Like, I just ate very bland, and clearly that wasn't setting me up for having good health. I just wasn't getting micronutrients. I was eating carbs and protein, and that was it. And I was always a chubby kid. And then going into high school, I actually fell in love with food, started getting a lot more into cooking from scratch, all different flavors, but I was still eating a lot of fast food, a lot of takeout, and deep fried Chinese food covered in sugary sauces was one of my favorites. And yeah, I was quite unwell. Going into my early 20s, yeah, I just had a lot of gut issues. I wasn't doing well. Ended up falling down a flight of stairs at my first restaurant job, injuring my back, and I couldn't really walk for a few weeks. So I knew I needed to lose weight. I knew something needed to change. I embarked on a journey, connected with my diet, with my lifestyle, and slowly lost 100 pounds, healed my gut issues. So that's a high-level arc for now. And Keegan, if you want to maybe give an arc of your journey and on how food stepped in, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. And then we'll unpack from there. So I'll echo a few of the things that you mentioned and put maybe a couple more details in with regard to the kind of foods that I was eating. As a kid, I grew up thinking that good food was food that tasted good. And the truth that is the truth, but maybe it was not framed the right way for me in regards to when I say food that tastes good, like, where does your mind go? For me, my 12-year-old self would be like, sour green apple Jolly Ranchers tastes amazing. And like MSG salty dill pickle seasoning with like in your buttered popcorn, that's good stuff. And then like Cajun seasoning on Kraft dinner, whole milk inside of my Kraft dinner, TV dinners, like that stuff is awesome. No. So that was my diet. That's what I grew up on. To give my mom a bit more credit as well, like she did have us eating well. Like she wasn't cooking those chicken nuggets every night of the week. We'd have them once a week or something like that. When your mom, naturally raising 3 kids, runs out of time, you throw some chicken nuggets in the oven. Just you get the job done. Make sure the kids are fed. But I'm writing a bit about food and illnesses right now, and so one of the topics or one of the themes that I'm exploring right now is like your autoimmune disorders are cumulative. It's not that you develop an allergy or a sensitivity overnight. That just doesn't make sense, logical sense on the face of it. They take sometimes years to grow and manifest. And that was my case. So I didn't start experiencing negative side effects from my food choices until I went off to university. And the summer before I went off to university, I was working at a pizza place. And so I was having pizza every day. So that would be your processed, enriched wheat flour, gluten, mixed with your mozzarella cheese and with like your processed meats and your veggies that like probably had some pesticides on them. So that was my meal every day for the 3 or 4 months before I went off to university. And then I started eating meal hall food. And like that stuff I love all you can eat food, but like you can't eat enough when
which
you're
is like also burgers and pizza. If, yeah, the salad station's there, but if you have a pie or an unlimited burger station, like you might go to the unlimited burger station.
Yeah, exactly. So then I hit that cumulative threshold at that point in time. Like that 4 months of my diet not being the most supreme during the summertime. Then I went off to university, I entered a high stress environment. So that stress plus that cumulative effect of eating lots of undesirable foods threw me into an eczema frenzy. Like I just exploded. And so what did I have to do after that? I saw an allergist. They told me that I was allergic to gluten, dairy, soy, garlic, mushrooms, kidney beans, lima beans, and coffee. Coffee was the weird one because I had never drank a cup of coffee in my life, so I don't know why that one showed up. But that's at least you asked me to define the arc. That's the uphill trajectory. Now the downhill was that over the course of the next 7 years, that's when I fixed my diet. Like it really did take me a long time for my body to respond to positive dietary choices. But that's what I mean by food saved my life. If it wasn't for those positive dietary choices that I made in the 7 years that fought, like from the time I was 18 to the time I was 25, like that's the window of time where I would define my life as being like pretty centric around my diet. Then after that, I'm in a place of stability and stasis now where I'm like, okay, so doctors, they were saying, yeah, you'll be allergic to all those things forever. You'll have your allergies forever. And I was like, okay, I was prepared. I mentally prepared myself for that reality, but now I eat everything and I have no issues. So what was that about? And I want to talk a little bit about that, but yeah, maybe I'll throw it back to you so we can bounce the conversation off of each other in terms of like, how exactly did it save our life? Are we being hyperbolic with that or what? And like, how did our respective food journeys shape what we're doing here at Food Web? And like, why are we here at Food Web doing what we're doing? Yeah.
Yeah. To flash back to, I mentioned I had that back injury. I had a lot of gut issues. That's also right when I started cooking school, believe it or not. And I realized I needed to embark on this healing journey while I was also learning how to cook. But I had chronic fatigue. I had no energy. I had no motivation to make any changes. I was seriously overweight. I weighed over 250 pounds, and I'm only about 5'7", so very short person to weigh that much. Like morbidly obese on the doctor scale of obesity. I had blood in my stool. I had gut problems. I was getting ultrasounds, trying to figure out what's going on. Like my body is showing serious symptoms of decline. and I'm in my early 20s. Chest pains, like I'm on track for cancer or a heart attack and just not doing well. And then it all culminates with me having the injury. Although I still struggle with chronic back pain because of that, I actually take that as a blessing, because if it weren't for that, I don't know if I would have been on the urge to change. A lot of my professors in culinary school were overweight. They glorified the never trust a skinny chef. A big belly on a chef is a sign that he's a good chef because he eats his food, and he's not one of those guys that doesn't eat his food. And that was the world that I was welcomed into as a chef. But I needed to change. I injured my back seriously, and I was having mobility issues, and I got a personal trainer, and he was really into nutrition, and he's like, you can work out all you want, but if you're not going to change in the kitchen, like, it's not going to make a big difference. And what changed it for me, I had a piece of paper on my fridge. I wrote down, change your mindset from I can have this, or I want this and I can't have it, to I can have it and I don't want it. So the cheeseburgers from McDonald's, if I want them, I can have them. They're right there. McDonald's is open 24 hours a day. They're cheaper than other food. If I want it, it's there. I can't tell myself that I can't have it, because if I tell myself I can't have it, then the other side of my brain is going to rebel against that and be like, what do you mean I can't have it? And I really needed to shift into, I can have it, but I don't want it, because I know what it's doing to my body. Like, my body is failing. And I embarked on the journey. While I was in cooking school, I made a deal with myself. Like, while I'm in class, eat whatever I want. I'm like, my pastry classes, make this beautiful cake. Yeah, I'm going to have a slice of that cake. I'd be like a fool not to, but I'm not bringing any sweets home from baking class. They never left the school. So during class, I would eat a slice, maybe two, but then as soon as I left the classroom, rather than taking the rest of my cake home like the rest of the students, I would walk around the school and give it to other people. I was like, there's no way. And if I made something like extra greasy in one of my other cooking classes, I would enjoy it. I would learn how to do that. And then I would go and give away those leftovers. And then quite strict in my home kitchen. I ate a lot of, yeah.
Yeah, so that's fun. I want you to just repeat what you had in your fridge, because I had some thoughts that I wanted to mirror there and take a different spin on. So what was it that was on your fridge again?
Yeah, so it said, change your mindset from I want this and I can't have it to I can have it and I don't want it.
Okay, interesting. So that kind of wouldn't have worked for me because of the nature of my relationship to food. There was things that if I ate, like, I would experience some pretty negative side effects from. You laid out the gambit there in terms of, like, the consequences of your poor eating choices, anywhere from digestive issues to like low energy. So my approach with that was redefining the terms that I used to refer to the foods that I liked. And so I actually did start calling some things poison in a very hyperbolic sense, at least internally in my own mind. Like, people would look at me pretty strange and, hey man, you've got a really high ego about your diet. If don't call this bag of chips poison, please. My family started to like really not the language that I was using, but internally it was a really strong mechanism of control for me, because, like, of course I'm not going to eat a bag of poison. Like, I'm not crazy. So if I was to call the dill pickle seasoning, right, and like the pizza and the bag of popcorn with butter on it, I just started calling that poison, because for me it was the best definition that I could use, because I loved those things and I had to distance myself from the things that I loved. But in order to do that, that's why we use the term toxic relationship, right? It's okay, you're in a toxic relationship, and sometimes that's the catalyst that we need in order to break it off with someone who's like maybe not so good for us, right? So I needed to break up with a lot of the foods that I had a toxic relationship with. Toxic, poison. You can see how I collected all these terms up and used them to my advantage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because for me, I like things weren't as acute. If I ate something that wasn't going to serve me, I wasn't going to experience like a quick turnaround time. But I know that with something like eczema and other inflammatory conditions, it can be, and it's interesting, like now I actually have that relationship with dairy now, where I knew that dairy was something that was one of the many contributors to my gut issues in the past. But now, if I eat dairy, my roommate made a beautiful brie cheese roasted with pears and blackberries and walnuts and rosemary the other night. Oh my God, it was amazing. Went to town with a nice French baguette and just devoured this brie dish because it was made in my oven and it was in front of me. And then 3 days later, I'm waking up in the middle of the night with bleeding knuckle, like scratching like crazy, like I'm experiencing that eczema. And so for me, dairy in this context actually would be a little bit more poison for me. So I hear what you're saying and I respect that. It's hard when you love something. Cheese is one of the most beautiful things that humans have ever invented. It's like we're going to milk an animal and then we're going to leave its cheese out a little bit and it's going to get awesome. It's just so good. And it's one of the reasons for me to be alive, like a good cheese, like it's heaven on earth in my mouth. And it hurts me. It hurts me really bad. And the amount of people that I know that struggle on the regular with really enjoying foods that they can't have, it's really hard.
It is hard. It's also alienating because when your friends all are hopping in the car and they're going to McDonald's, at least the friend group that I was hanging out with when I was in my 20s, they would actively tell me that, oh, it sucks to be you. Like, it sucks that you can't come with us. I was like, no, I can come with you. I'm just not going to order anything. Like, then you're just that awkward guy who goes to a restaurant in quotations with your friends and doesn't order anything or has to speak to the server for 5 to 8 minutes about all your dietary restrictions in 2012. Dietary restrictions weren't cool in 2012. I don't know if you know this, but
now servers ask you, they're there filling your nose. Does anybody at the table have any allergies, sensitivities? Is cross-contamination okay? Do you need me to fully sanitize the entire workspace? I can. It just might take an extra 5 minutes for your sandwich, but like, our chef will go out of the way to make sure there's not a single crumb of gluten. Like, we've come a long way. And I hear you, like, even just going through the transitions I was going through in my 20s, I really needed to not be around, like, the alienating factor. Like, I couldn't go to McDonald's with my friends and not order something because I didn't have the impulse control. And that, for me, again, like, I didn't get acute, instant negative feedback. So it was easy for me to just be like, whatever, like, what's one more McDonald's pack of chicken nuggets gonna do? And something you said earlier is how, like, inflammatory based conditions or autoimmune based conditions, I think a lot of conditions, they're cumulative. Eating McDonald's once, I don't think is gonna cause like radical damage to your body. But if your body on the regular is having to deal with, oh, there's toxins here, I need to move them, like something that I'm sensitive to, a protein that you can't digest, and your immune system has to come and take those things away and say, hey, liver, I don't know what to do with this. Sometimes it's not that it's an actual like poison per se, whereas like some molecules, straight up poison, like free radical damage, you're actually damaging cells on contact. Other things are the body's, I don't know what to do with this. Therefore, I need to send resources to these molecules and move them away and tell your kidneys that they need to pee these out. But then your kidneys are like, but like, you haven't done any of the processing work yet. What do you mean while you pee them out? Your nervous system, just do what I told you. Just get them out of here. And your kidneys, okay, sure, I guess I will. But then your kidneys aren't designed to pee those out before they're metabolized. So it's this whole cascade. So for me, I knew like I can't have another pack of chicken nuggets, period, because I just don't have the impulse control and I didn't have that initial negative feedback loop. If I got a flare up of eczema from one thing of chicken nuggets, it would be a little easier for me to buckle down and say, I'm not going to do this. But I was like, it was about, I do not, even to this day, I don't have good impulse control. I see baked goods and I'm like, I'm eating them. So it's like, I have to not go to the places where they're available. But then when your friends are like, hey, you want to go for a walk? And you're like, I'm going to walk by 6 bakeries. I'm screwed. I'm so screwed.
Yeah, I think the really challenging element of changing your diet is when you change your diet, your whole life changes. The number of pieces the number of things that your diet touches in your life, it's actually almost all of them, which like it's a nice way for us to talk about food web as well. Like that's one of the reasons why we're doing food web. Like in episode 2 we talked about like revolutions and having access to bread. In the last episode we had a little blurb on breaking bread with your enemies, right? Like your diet ends up governing so much of your life. And so when you embark on changing your diet, like you might think that you're just going to change the way that you eat, but then the way that you eat is going to end up changing you. You're going to shop at a different grocery store. You're going to go to different restaurants. You're going to interact with different people. The people that you interact with at those places are different, right? The crowd that hangs out at McDonald's is not the same crowd that hangs out at the farmers market. They're not the same people. They have different cultures, different mentalities, and I am not going to stand here and say one's better than the other. That's not my place at all. I'm just saying that they're different, and that by making that shift in your life, like you're going to notice those changes within yourself eventually. Like for me, this was like at least 7 year transition for me, like major changes within the first 2 to 3 years. Then like I started looking back and like my body functions completely differently. And then 7 years later, I can start eating dairy again, which was like the most surprising thing, because like I had resolved myself to never eating dairy or gluten ever again. Okay, I'll just be that person that can't eat those things. Fine. I'm not even going to try. I'm okay with not eating these things anymore. But then when I started adding them back in my diet, I was able to do it. Why? Why was I able to do it again? It's probably because that cumulative effect that triggers so many of our autoimmune disorders, it's subsided. It goes both ways. It can accumulate, and then it can. Justin, what's the opposite of accumulate? I'm struggling for this word here. Diminish,
decumulate.
Decumulate, yeah, I guess so. And I didn't know that it could do that. I really took my doctor's words as gospel truth there. You're going to have these allergies for the rest of your life. My diet ended up changing me in ways that I didn't expect, in ways that doctors didn't expect. And so it was a gift back to me. Hey, you change your life, I'm going to change you. And by the way, I'm going to hand something back to you, which is you're going to be able to enjoy the full spectrum of food. And like now consciously, I don't want to go back to many of the foods. Like I don't eat dill pickle ice cream anymore. Like dill pickle ice cream. Good Lord. Can you imagine? I don't eat dill pickle seasoning on my popcorn anymore.
Yeah.
Is what I meant to say. Yeah. I want to talk about taste as well, but any thoughts there? Do you want to riff on any of that or?
I just see a couple comments here on the Instagram live. I just want to respond to.
Let's do it.
Island Girl 444. Thanks for joining us again, back-to-back weeks. Yeah, just saying, wishing there were systems set up to guide people through determining which foods work for them and which didn't. And something we all did as a regular thing, not necessarily through the medical system. So I was thinking about that a lot recently, actually, because so in 2025, after I finished cooking school, I took a nutrition course through the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And one of my teachers there was a naturopathic doctor, and learned that first course that I took was like a year-long program. Like by no means was it like a full dietitian degree. I barely scratched the surface. But what we learned in that 1 year was more comprehensive in nutrition and how food impacts the body than physicians get in their medical school degree. And I know like right now there are a lot of like radical, awesome professors in medical school, like pushing the boundaries and putting it back in the curriculum. But like doctors that graduated 30 years ago and onward, there's a lot of doctors that are currently licensed doctors that just actually weren't taught and equipped with what food can do. To your point there, Island Girl, not necessarily through the medical system. Like I agree, because the medical system just actually isn't equipped. And any doctor that's savvy on nutrition had to go and learn that on their own or take an extra certificate, like the default curriculum. And if they specialized in like something like feet or whatever that doctors specialize in, they're not good. That was their extra training. They're not getting this other nutrition training. But one of your other comments here saying it'd be nice to include education for servers and restaurateurs. Like, I think that the food industry and chefs and people who are in the day-to-day practice of bringing people together, like, that's where this conversation needs to take place. Like, your doctor should know more about nutrition and how diet can happen, but like the medical system's so overwhelmed. Like, how do we like take care of each other? How do we have those spaces? And how do we put this back in curriculum? Anybody out there that works in like elementary and high school education, who's out there working on getting home ec back in the classroom and like modern nutrition? And I know that schools are struggling these days, but I think that's a big area where people just need to know this and know how food impacts them and know how to listen to their body. That's something that like I used to think was, ooh, listening to your body, but it's like, it's real.
The most epic advice is to listen to your body. Yeah, I want to dive in there and double down on that point there. Justin, is actually you're the best person to take nutrition advice from, but there's like tons of caveats there. Let's just acknowledge a couple of the elephants in the room first. Nutrition is actually super expensive. Like our whole food system is upside down. Like pop and Coca-Cola costs less than bottled water, for example. It makes no sense at all. A meal at McDonald's might be the only thing you can afford. And it's okay, what do you do about nutrition in that instance where you're told to balance the budget first before balancing your diet, right? Oh, God, that's like totally backwards. But, God, okay, let's just assume for a moment that you do have the extra 20% it takes to buy your food from the farmer's market instead of McDonald's and cook your own meat. Let's assume that you have the extra 20% of the time it takes to cook every meal at home instead of eating out at fast food places. If you did have those things, then you're off to a really good start just on the face of it. Like if you buy your food from the farmer's market, like that food has a lot more nutrition in it. Like not all carrots are created equally is what I wanted to say here, right? Like a carrot that you buy at the grocery store is not the same carrot that you took from the hands of the farmer at the farmer's market. That carrot at the farmer's market actually tastes better. Circling back around to the like things that I learned during my food transformation is like as soon as I started cutting out a bunch of processed sugars, gluten, and dairy, within 2 weeks, my taste buds shifted completely. And broccoli tasted amazing, and peas and carrots tasted amazing. Even the ones at like the meal hall that were like lower quality stuff, like I just started noticing those tastes, and like it formed this really positive feedback loop where I no longer craved the things that were less nutritious and unhealthy for me. I started craving the things that were better for me. And so craving is one of those things that like listen to your body. That's a thing that your body says to you. Like it speaks to you in cravings and impulses and all sorts of ways. Now you have to have the emotional and impulse control to be like, I'm craving donuts, but okay, cool. Maybe I definitely need to not eat donuts. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference there between listening for like the desires and cravings versus and then listening to how something makes you feel are also two different things, because cravings can be real. Like I don't know all the ins and outs of this. I'm not like a biologist or anything, but I was listening to a podcast recently about gluten and dairy, and when they're combined in the same meal, they metabolize into substances that are like opiate-like compounds. So there are your opiate receptors, and like mother's breast milk contains molecules that bind to your opiate receptors. Like these receptors
So
in the
does
body.
cheese.
Yeah, and so like me fiending for pizza is a real thing. There is something primal and instinctual in me, in my nervous system, that is telling me when I eat pizza, I'm going to feel at a cellular level the warmth of a mother's embrace. And I'm not conscious about that. I'm not walking down the street being like, I'm really lonely. I miss my mom. I'm going to go get a slice of pizza. It's deeper than that. It's like at the cellular level. And these cravings are going to tell you to go and access certain foods because they're going to make you feel certain ways. And that's the initial feeling, like that initial gratification. But then listening deeper, it's okay, but how do I feel after? But Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there's still a bit more to riff on here. One, when I'm talking about where to source your food, a lot of my food choices and like my transformation started at the grocery store when I'm walking through the aisles. You can teach yourself a lot, lean into yourself, have the confidence in yourself to try new things and make mistakes and look at patterns. Like a food journal is a pretty decent way to learn about your own nutritional optimal state. Like you're basically the only one that can determine what that optimal state is for yourself. Like in a perfect world, I would love to see your doctor work with you on that, but it's just not going to happen in multiple 5-minute visits. Like my upbringing with my family doctor was like 5-minute visit here, 5-minute visit there, and every single one of them I was never asked the question about my diet or my exercise or my sleep. Okay. Number one, like when you're walking through the aisles, just start reading things and start Googling things, throw it into ChatGPT. Like you can take a picture of an ingredient list and then ask ChatGPT to enumerate all of the ingredients. Who manufactures polysorbate 80? And like where does that come from and what is it and what effects does it have on your, is that a like an endotoxin, is it a cancer causing
Mm-hmm.
agent, is it carcinogenic? And then you're going to naturally just accumulate information there. You don't need to do that at the farmer's market because you're picking up a head of lettuce and that's lettuce, that's a head of lettuce, and the farmer's going to tell you whether or not to wash it or not. Hey, I did use some pesticides or herbicides, so just give it a wash before you eat this. So that's number one, read
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but I think there's a huge piece, and one of the comments here on Instagram pointed this out too, is not everybody has the knowledge on or the experience or the skill to be able to make that transition. So during my time over the years working in food and meeting people that work in all sorts of different food organizations and food banks, I've heard again and again, for example, a food bank will get some local produce and you get some squash and some celeriac. I don't know if you ever try to cut into a celeriac. Like, you better have a sharp, big knife. It's a gnarly beast of a vegetable. But even something like a butternut squash, at the end of the day, not all the squash got took. Even though everybody could take one squash, this like healthy, nutrient dense vegetable, people aren't necessarily taking. Why? You could speculate until the cows come home as to why, but some common reasons are time. I just need the pasta because I'm busy and I have kids and I have to work 3 jobs in order to pay my rent and the housing crisis. But there's no shame to the people who don't have time. There's structural barriers in place, but maybe you don't have a knife sharp and safe enough to cut into a butternut squash. Maybe nobody's ever taught you how to hold a knife safely. Do you have a cutting board big enough to safely undertake? There are things here, and it's one of my go-to examples. It's a really great fall dish that I make. I make a roasted butternut squash soup with lentils. Lentils have the most protein per gram of any like plant-based food. For anybody that has a hard time digesting beans, lentils are typically easier to digest. They're cheaper than beans. They cook faster than beans. Like lentils all the way. Like there's
lentils saved my life. We could probably retitle this episode as Lentils Saved My Life. Like just anecdote there, Justin. I doubled down on lentils during my food transformation for all the reasons that you just said. They're super easy to cook. You cook them exactly like you cook rice. 1-to-2 ratio, throw it in a pot, leave it for half an hour, go take care of your homework, whatever you need to do, come back, your lentils are ready, throw some balsamic vinegar in there. It's actually, go get a whole bag of lentils and that's your protein. If you're vegan,
it's like $3.99. But this much lentils expands into this. It's go and buy lentils. If you're struggling with your food budget and you haven't already incorporated lentils, that's a good place to start. But again, it comes down to education and it comes down to sharing the work. Something that I'm going to be launching, this is a little sneak peek of what's to come with me in 2026. While we're out building Food Web, I'm also going to be putting my chef hat back on, getting ready to start offering some cooking classes and gatherings. And an event that I want to do, it'll be based in Montreal, where I'm living now, is a meal prep party. So it'll be a cooking class where you can come and can learn some skills, but it's also going to be a time to throw down and have fun. And we're going to do meal prep together. 12 people come together, teams of 3. Everybody makes one giant serving of a big dish, but then you get to take a container home of all the other dishes. So in one 3-hour session, you can fill your fridge with meals for the week. And that's something that I think more people need to do together, because the idea that we need to feed ourselves in this one-on-one way, that's like, individualism might be like the biggest problem we're facing when it comes to a lot of the problems we face as humans. But with food, it's just crazy. If you're going to make this much food, you might as well make this much food, because it's not, to double the size of a pot of soup is not double the effort. It might be like 0.7 times. It's not doubling. Like, the cooking in bigger batches is just, it's more efficient if you have the capacity and the equipment to do. And it's something we need to do together. And anybody that wants to dive in more on the programming side, stay tuned, because I really want to get community interacting together and sharing the load together, make it a little easier.
So that would be chefjustinandrews.com. Is that right, Justin? chefjustinandrews.com. That's where to find any and all of that programming. Okay, cool. Yeah, you have to remember to like shamelessly plug your things when you're talking about your initiatives, okay? So I like that you brought up the squash example, because that's something that I hadn't even considered before I met you. You're like, okay, cool. You go to the food bank, all the pasta and the canned stuff and the instant foods, they're taken immediately. But the stuff that is left on the shelves after that is the stuff that people don't know how to cook. It's just like food education, to your point, is missing. It's missing in elementary school. It's probably missing like at the family level. It's missing in high school. You don't even really learn it in home ec. What did I learn in home ec? I learned how to sew a soccer ball. I sewed some soccer balls, and cool, I know how to sew now. But sewing, I think we can make the argument that sewing is just like a little less essential than cooking food and cooking your meals. Sorry for all the sewers out there, but like you eat, everyone eats, and not everyone needs to sew, but we all wear clothes. So I'll throw some kudos back to the sewers out there. Okay, but another point that you raised was about the amount of effort it takes to make multiple meals or a larger meal. And I spend half of my time in India, and the food culture here is completely different from the food culture in the Western Hemisphere. Like, I want to draw a couple of differences there to illustrate the like very nice elements of Indian culture that is worth us thinking about how to incorporate into our own food practices. Like, when a meal is cooked here in my Indian household, like they always cook too much, and it's awesome because there's always leftovers, and everyone can like walk away from the table with like really full stomachs. Whereas as a kid, I grew up with two siblings, and it was always like a competition. Like, everyone's rushing through their meal because it's a scarcity mentality. And that mentality exists everywhere, I think. But with regard to food in India, that mentality is not around. Like, for my daughter's birthday a couple weeks ago, we took these steel containers called dabbas, and we gave them to homeless people because the gift of giving food is sacred in this culture. Like, it's like thought of and conceptualized as a divine act. So my daughter, she's 2, she would touch the steel thing, and then we'd go and we'd hand it to someone, and their face would light up, and then afterwards their stomach would light up. And it's the act of giving food is so high here. And like, we're even disconnected from that, right? When you donate to your food bank, you still don't have that connection with the person who takes the food from your food bank. You're still removed from it. You're still not cooking with them. You're still not meal prepping. And like, the right term for this, you already said it, it's individualism, right? There's elements of collectivism that we need to revitalize and to reinvigorate. Like, I think back to when churches held community meals, and they still do, but like, the church has shrunk in the West due to like XYZ reasons. But that is an arguably very positive element of that organization, where they get together and they feed the community, and they don't ask you, hopefully, generally, like where you're coming from, right? I don't know anything about the people here that I share a meal with. All I know is that we all eat and that we can't eat together. Yeah.
So there's some like structural shit in the way. Like I was as you were saying that, I was just like itching to share this. A really disheartening story emerged during the outreach tour we did in May 2025. We got a grant. We hosted 6 focus groups across Nova Scotia to hear about people's access around kitchen spaces, shared resources, helping food, all of that. We've talked a lot about that tour, but there was a young woman, I believe a student in Halifax, who was behind the community fridge project in Halifax. And then somebody else came that represents the Fairview Community Pantry. So both of these they operate like a food bank at a smaller scale. There's not like open hours. It's just open to the public all the time. You just go and you can open the pantry and you take a can of beans. The community fridge and freezer in Halifax. So they have a fridge and a freezer. I believe it's outside Glitter Bean Cafe in Halifax, and they built a little wooden shelter around it to keep all the wires safe from the weather. And they get donations of vegetables and things that can go in the fridge and freezer. When it comes to meals, right, you talk about just being able to go out into the community and hand out meals. The community fridge in Halifax is not allowed to have prepared meals in their fridge that can be served to the public because there might be a food risk there. If that's not from a commercial kitchen and it's labeled and all of that stuff, then you need permits and regulations, etc. If I just want to cook some soup and put them in containers and put them in this fridge outside of a cafe, and somebody else that needs free food wants to open that fridge and just take that prepared meal, we're not allowed to do that. So the community, and there have been donations to the community fridge where just neighbors are like, I want to put some leftovers in this fridge for somebody to go and take. The community fridge, according to their official policies, must throw that food out because they're not allowed to have that there.
That's
and then you want
wild.
to my table, and yeah, well, absolutely bonkers.
Okay, let's linger here for some time. I want you to talk about what penalties exist in the instance where, okay, so a penalty is just that food goes to waste. Like here in India, that's among the worst things that can happen. Like throwing out food and food waste. Like you should see my mother-in-law when she takes her hand and scoops every single last drop of soup from the pot. Like she doesn't let a crumb go to waste. Like it's hardcore in my mindset, but it's beautiful from another mindset. So it's to have a meal that someone either prepared or wants to give to someone, put in the community fridge and then thrown out because of a rule. So I want you to talk about what that rule is, why it exists, why it might be nonsense, and then what penalties exist. So those 4 questions there, Justin, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so exact penalties I can't speak to. I'm not sure exactly what regulations or permits food banks and they'll need to operate. So that's just, I'll humble myself and say I don't fully know. I can speak adjacently from a restaurant perspective because we've run into similar things. Maybe we'll have to get one of the community fridge people on one of our podcasts to tell us a little more in that specific context. But even in the restaurant world, there's a hesitancy to give out meals. So at the end of the day, like at a restaurant, you have a pot of soup that's been kept hot for 3 hours so we can just like scoop and serve. It's already been out for a few hours. For us to take that soup and put it in containers to give out, there is this perceived risk because from a food safety perspective, once food has been in what's called the danger zone, so a certain range of temperature for a certain number of hours, it is no longer deemed food safe. For us at the restaurant, if we want to serve that same soup tomorrow, I know, okay, the soup had already sat out all day. I'm going to bring it to a long boil. It's going to boil hard for 15 minutes so I can kill off any mild amount of bacteria to reserve that soup. But if I'm going to go out and try to give this soup to people, whether it's homeless or not, I want to stock it in the fridge, whatever. I don't know for a fact that whoever's going to eat this is going to boil it for 15 minutes so it's now safe again. Do you know what I mean? What if they just eat it cold and they get, food poisoning? We're so afraid of food poisoning in our culture. And when something happens, I don't know if it was last year, the Silk brand of milk had a recall because it had listeria. Listeria is bad. It's really bad. Most healthy adults would probably fight it off. Children are especially susceptible, and pregnant women. If a pregnant woman gets listeria, there's a high chance of serious issues and infant mortality. My mom's a gynecologist and has seen cases of listeria in pregnant women. We don't around with listeria. But when you're at that scale, Silk brand milk being made in a plant and distributed to thousands of stores, one drop of listeria could end up in tens of thousands of people's homes. Okay, we need to be hardcore about our safety testing in food factories. If I make 3 batches of food and are put in a community fridge, we're not risking widespread food poisoning throughout the system, but it's still treated in the same way. The regulators still look at the distribution through that same lens of we cannot allow foodborne illness to get spread, period, full stop, whether it's small scale or large scale. That causes a lot of restaurants to just throw the food out at the end of the day. And it's also insurance, right? In the West, we have this perspective of whether it's the regulator saying you can't, or it's you're scared that somebody's going to get food poisoning and come and sue your restaurant. And we live in a twisted world where people do sue restaurants I don't know how much of it is baked in fear and how much of it is actually the regulations. I just know that restaurants are throwing out food at the end of the day, and the community fridges are not allowing fresh meals to be dropped off.
Awesome. So here's the call to action here for anyone listening and anyone listening live or anyone listening in the future. If you're a food inspector and you want to come explain these rules to us, please come and explain these rules to us and why you take these perspectives on a local perspective. And then also, if you run a community fridge anywhere in the country of Canada or United States or Europe for that matter, let's go talk to Europeans. If you run a community fridge, we want to talk to you. We want to have you on the show. We want to have you explain more of these challenges, explain the pains, explain the emotions that you feel, explain and talk about the emotions that the people that you serve feel as well. We want to get your voice out there. Cool. So we have deviated slightly from the topic of the show, which is food saved my life. So let's get back there, wrap up the show, and then send our listeners on the way. Where do we go from here? Food saved my life. I don't know, Justin. There might not actually be that much for us to circle back around to there. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's food saved our lives, and I've seen it save other people's lives. I've worked at herbal medicine dispensaries. I've worked at health food stores. I've seen many examples of dramatic healing happen that doctors thought wasn't possible. I've seen it again and again. Direct hand. I've seen it in documentaries. I've read it in books. Okay. That's possible. Where we deviated today was unpacking the structural, cultural, societal, and economic barriers to do which need to be addressed. And that's fundamentally why Food Web is doing what we're doing. And it's why we're having these conversations. So we're about removing barriers to make it easier for food to save more people's lives. Let's get policy changed. Let's make it, okay, if somebody wants to drop off 12 freezer meals at a community freezer, we're not going to regulate that the same way we're going to regulate a factory. That's a policy shift that could just change to make it easier to put healthy whole foods in your neighbor's fridge. I think this podcast episode is littered with potential solutions that we can tackle. And Anybody listening, if you work in any of those areas or want to, hit us up within the next week or two. We're going to be talking a lot more about how you can join us on these live sessions. We're going to spin up a page on the website where you can just let us know who you are, what you do, what you'd like to talk about, and we can get you slotted in. And that's why we've committed to doing these every Wednesday. So if there's a Wednesday that works for you, even 6 weeks down the line, get on the calendar. We need to have these conversations, and we need more stories of hope too. If you're running a really cool program in another city, like, we don't have to create all the alternatives. There are patchwork solutions in different areas. I know in California, a number of years ago, they allowed people to make food in their homes and sell it. They changed the rule. You didn't need a commercial kitchen for certain scales. And they're not having a crisis of foodborne illness, at least to my knowledge. I don't know what's going on down there, but we need examples of what's working, not just what we need to change. So if you work with a program or policy that has had success, let's tell that story so other areas can just point to that and say, oh, if they can do it, we can do that too.
Epic. And that is entirely why Food Web exists. Like, we want to amplify what works. We want to point out what doesn't work. And like you mentioned, that one of the reasons why we exist is policy change. And that's one road to affecting change in our society. But one thing that, as a roof, like using my revolutionary mind, like one idea that I've always gravitated to is that you vote with your dollar. Like, we only get to vote once every 4 years, once every couple years in municipal situations. That's really slow. Democracy is what it is, but you spend your money every single day. So like, when you go to the farmer's market and you spend $1 there, like, you're voting. You are voting, and your vote really matters. You know how much it matters to the person across from you receiving that dollar? It matters so much. It matters way more than your political differences ever do. Like, you anyway, right? That's the other way, like, that's another reason why Food Web exists for me, is I need to see more food businesses at the farmers market. I need to see more people talking about how to make food products, distribute them. I want that community fridge to be packed. I want there to be so much food there that throwing out any of it is a logistical nightmare. The only way to get rid of it is for people to come and eat it. I want to create problems with the regulation, so much so that the regulation needs to change. Oh, there's a really big issue. I have so many people cooking prepared meals for that community fridge that throwing it all out that just seems wrong and irrational. That's my vision for Food Web. And yeah, maybe that's a good way to save other people's lives.
Amen.
All right. So let's end here. Folks, thank you for listening to the Food Web Podcast. Like Justin said, if you'd like to appear as a guest on the Food Web Podcast, please visit foodweb.network/podcast. Both Justin and I are around for both phone calls, emails. If you do want to appear as a guest and you're not available on a Wednesday, Justin didn't mention this, but we will have you on a Tuesday. We'll have you on a Thursday. We can jump online and film a podcast whenever. Like, we will accommodate you. If your story needs to be heard, then we need to hear your story on any day of the week that makes sense for you. So let's do that. Let's tell each other's food stories. Let's amplify how food has saved our lives, how food has maybe destroyed our lives. We need to hear those stories as well. Lastly, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure that you rate the podcast. That helps us get seen. If you think that these stories are worth hearing in other people's ears, then that's how we do it. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like our videos, our shorts, you share them, you like them. And if you've done all that, then contact us, because you're a marketing whiz and you have a passion for us and we want to hear from you. So please reach out to those emails and get in touch. Thanks, everyone. Much love.